was really good.
You're on an EV4?
Yeah, yeah. So the southern end, this is probably the best part of town, and like if we're central, we'd do bigger things. But this is a nice little, good little room, and the setup's nice, and you market them,
Yeah.
you do all that sort of stuff, and you smash it out, and they just roll through, which is really good.
Yeah, which is good. So I think I've just got to work out how I filter those into your seminars.
We just invite them. You put on the event.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start, so if you can take the seats.
Come on, you rapscallions. Don't worry, the bar is still open. You can get up and refresh your drinks throughout the course. Oh, a rose between two thorns. Or it's the other way around, isn't it? A thorn between two roses? Yeah, I know. I was waiting. That's right, perfect. See, it's funny, all the front rows had $50 bills tucked underneath. No one wants those. Hey Liz, just get that tech person, see if we get some of that feedback to disappear. See if you can get that audio person, see if we can get some of that feedback to disappear. Come on folks, grab a seat. Oh, perfect. Just grab Jody and get them to grab a seat. G'day, mate. Good kid.
Okay, my name's David Hamilton. I'm the Managing Director of Palm Beach First National and the Pines, and a partner in Burleigh. And there are a number of other offices represented around the room, so I'm not going to go into them because you all know where you got your invitations from. I'm going to introduce Aaron Davis, who's been doing this kind of work for probably 30 years. I've always found him a really entertaining, knowledgeable speaker, so I hope you're going to get a lot out of it. And I'm not going to sit up here on the stage or stand up here and take up your time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Oh, I thought that was my beer. Oh, gee whiz, I thought I was in luck. Welcome everybody. How are we going tonight? Hey, good, good. Just a bit of little housekeeping. The bar is open, so feel free to get a drink any time. I was always told to lighten the mood up with a bit of live humour at the start, but unfortunately the only jokes I know are very inappropriate and rude, so we'll try and stick to the subject. So welcome everybody here tonight. Relax and enjoy yourselves. Food, drinks, it's all there. It's pretty informal, pretty relaxed, and I have a tendency to talk a lot and move quickly, so that's what we'll do here for you tonight. So for the next few hours, for the first half of the session and the next half of the session for the last 3 hours, we're going to cover a lot. That was a joke, that was my inappropriate humour. Look, as Dave says, tonight's not about me, but generally when you get a speaker up on stage, you want to know what they've been talking about, or at least they know what they're talking about. So I've been doing property for nearly 30 years now. I've owned building companies, development companies, property management companies, steel framing factories, I've probably helped over 20,000 people through their property journey. So what I'm going to try and do tonight for you is condense 30 years worth of experience and jam it into the next 4 hours, okay? Well, give or take an hour and a half, all right? So we'll go pretty quick. So enough about me, because that's not what tonight is about. It's all about you. So what we're going to do tonight for you, I'll try and get out of the screen. I sort of have a tendency of pacing. So how's that feedback? Is that not too bad? No, that's pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So what we might do, whilst our technical guy is working on that, why don't I just project? Is that better? Right. Okay, so what we'll do is when I start to get a low at the back, just tell me and I'll go, hey. Right. So what we're going to do here for you tonight, can everyone hear me at the back okay now? Less feedback? Beautiful. Right. So tonight is about one thing, really about education. We don't slide those back doors. Oh, that's all right. Do I need it? Yeah. Okay. Oh. Hello. There we go. All right. God, this feels very weird. No, I won't do the Elvis impersonation. Right. No. Maybe some drinks later, right? So what we're going to do tonight is cover a lot of topics. We're going to basically cover where is the market going. If you're a first home buyer, how to get into the market. If you've got a home already, what's a good way of buying and selling it. And also if you're thinking of making some money, how can you invest and how to do it safely, right? So really the key for us tonight is basically understanding that what we're going to do is cover generic things and give you an idea of what's happening in the market. So when you walk out of here, you've got a real plan of attack. So where is the market at the moment and how is it on the move? Now, leading up to the election, basically the market ground to a halt because fundamentally everybody's wanting to know what was going on. Now, I'm not here to say Liberal's better than Labor or Labor's better than Liberal, but that's ultimately your choice. Over the course leading up to the election though, what happens in the property market is we have a tendency to follow the market and what's going on. So when things are going good and you read the newspapers and auction rates are happening, property's booming, we're all out there in the market and we're all going in there and we're all doing it and it's all happening. In reverse, when we're going through a tough time or there's different changes happening, we all have a tendency of pulling back. So what happened leading up to the election with all of that uncertainty and, really the key issue was pretty profound about what was happening with negative gearing, the property market, and everybody sort of understood that, and that's where they went to the polls with. The big issue was ultimately what was going to happen with our home values, what was going to happen to the market, how were we going to cash flow them as an investor. Now, what's happened was fundamentally leading up to the market, and lending also had a big part to play on this, was that it was very, very tough. Anybody in the room that tried to go and get a mortgage or anything leading up to the election, it was very, very difficult. Now, the market's back on. The moment that the Liberals were in, whether you agreed with them or not, confidence returned to the market almost instantaneously. So what did happen is that people went, oh, okay, business as usual. We're off and running. So what do we do now? We've got a level playing field, we're confident in the market, we know what's happening. So almost the weekend after the election, auctions and clearance rates went bang. Everybody was out in the market. There was all this pent-up demand, basically from owners wanting to go, well, where do I go, what should I do? The first home buyers, that became quite an issue sort of about a month leading up to the election because they opened up this new grant or ultimately way of getting for first home buyers to get into the market. And the investors were holding off as well because they just simply didn't know whether they could cash flow it or not. Here we are now, election's off and running. That's all history now, and the market is definitely on the move. It's been more proactive in the last 3 to 4 months than it has been in the last 3 to 4 years. So it's definitely moving. Now, another part to that is the lending scenario. Now, did anyone see the rate cut today? Yeah, it's gone down again. So money has been the cheapest that it ever has been before, and it's looking to stay that way for a little while. So people with mortgages, we should be out there shopping tomorrow to get a better deal. Anyone that's thinking about going into the market, now is a really big time. And I'll cover finance through the night. One of the real big issues, though, is what happened with APRA probably a month ago now. Now, APRA is basically the governing body that determines lending and banking, to make it simple. Now, what the big issue was is that when you go out and get a loan, we would probably do our budget, if the interest rate's 4% or 5%, we would do our cash flows and budgets on that. But when you're actually going to get a loan, they're not going to assess you on what the rates were. They're actually going to assess you 2, 3, 4 points higher. So if the lending market was at 4%, they're actually assessing you at 7 or 7.5%. So it made it very, very tough for us to actually go out and get a loan for our home or investment property because it was very, very tough there. APRA lifted that regulation a few weeks back. So now all the banks are back in the market. And what happens with the banks pre-election as well was that they'd turned all their taps off as well, because banks are in the business of lending money and really working out what their risk profile is. Because what was going up to the election was that if Labor did get in, the property market was certainly destined to take a hit, which means everybody's property values goes, which means their equity level from the banks has also dissipated as well. So they were definitely tightening the screws on all the banks, right? And just lending the money that they were doing. Now that that has happened, rates are dropping, APRA's just an interest rate, the banks are now turning the taps on in a big way. So lending is realistically as good as we're ever going to get. Property prices are on the move, and my mouse is moving around. See, this is what happens when you have too many pockets. Did anyone see where that mouse went? Here we go. Pick a pocket, any pocket at all. It's in none of those, all right? Well, it's somewhere in my pocket. There we go. It's working. It's working. See, I love technical difficulties. It just makes my job so much more fun. Okay, so if property is on the move, what are our steps? Whether you're an owner-occupier or an investor, you should follow very, very simple steps to succeed and move forward in what you're doing. Step number 1 is, are you going to make an emotional choice or a logical choice? All right? Now, the emotional choice is your home, and that's why I call it a want. We don't need to buy our home for shelter. We can rent, right? But ultimately, deep down inside, all of us want our own home. Is that fair enough? Yeah, we all want to own it. So when we're going out there to buy our home, all the choices that we are making are emotional ones. Where do I want to live? What makes me feel good? Where's the right school? Where do I want to retire? Where do I have a beach view? Whatever that may be. Everything that we do is generally controlled by our heart. And a lot of the times that can carry us away a lot. When we're at that auction, we go, yeah, no, we love it, we love it, we love it, and we keep bidding. And sometimes that has effect on us. So when we're making our choice around our home, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying buying home's bad, it's just an emotional choice. Now, what we're going to try and teach you here tonight is still have those emotions and love flowing, but balance it out with some logical, smart choices as well. Now, if you're looking down the investment road, that's very easy. It's about making money. It's purely and simply about that. Do I want to make money? And if I do, all I want to do with an investment property is pick the best one. So, if we've worked out which path we're going down, what we now need to do is work out which one should we choose. But realistically, that's actually not our next step, because that's where people make the mistake. Before they even go shopping, and that's what they do, is they go out and we're looking around and we're going to our local agents and we go, oh, what do I like and what do I love, and that feels good. We don't know whether or not we can buy it. So what you want to do is, before you go out and start shopping, is work out how much you can spend. Now that comes in 2 parts. One is seeing a broker, getting your finance, getting that running and knowing what you can actually go out and buy for and write the check out. But more importantly, it's that ongoing cash flow, because you're going to have to look after paying that home for yourself, and you've got to make sure that is paid for and you can keep living in that warm, fuzzy feeling. So when you're going to go down that path, make sure that A, you get your borrowing capacity right so you know what you can spend, because that gives you more power. When you go to your local team at First National and say, oh no, Doc, Dave, Paul, Wayne, how you going? Great, I want to buy that home now. You know the power that you've got, because you've got the money ready to go, you've got that checkbook, and you can negotiate so much harder for that dream home. And you give the First National team the power to negotiate when you know that you've got that checkbook ready to go. So getting the money right is very important. With an investment property, yes, you still need to go to a broker and find out how much you can borrow, but the cash flow is very different, because you're not the only one paying for it. You've got the taxman and the renter helping you service that, which I'll cover a bit later. But ultimately, when we talk about investment property, it's realistically, does it cost me anything per week? So is it $20 or $30 a week? Is it cash flow neutral, or do I actually get more money back so it's actually cash flow positive? Now, ultimately, if it is cash flow neutral or cash flow positive, life's good. You can have as many as you like, right? But if it's cash flow negative 20, 30, 50 or $100 a week, now you start making different choices. Could I stop buying a latte every day or some nice shoes and put that $20 a week towards something that will make me more money and ultimately give me a better lifestyle at the back end? So getting your budget and your numbers right when it comes to a property investment affects the rest of your life. So what we want to do is emotional, logical, how am I going to pay for it? Then and only then can you actually start shopping, right? Shopping for a home, very simple. Where do I want to live? What makes me feel warm and fuzzy? Shopping for an investment property is very simple. What will make me the most money in the least amount of time, with the least amount of stress and the least amount of risk? So when you're buying an investment property, it's about making money. When you're buying the home, because the reality is, you know, I've been doing this for a long time and I've seen a lot of audiences like this. Most people in the audience, they sort of get into that home as early as they can, but still in debt in their 40s and 50s and 60s. So if you're going to be in debt for a long period of time, make sure that you love it, all right? Very, very crucial. With investment property, just make sure it makes you make money. And the last step is finding some people to go on the journey with that can actually help you do it. And that's really a part of successful home ownership or investment, is building a team and a network around you that can help you do it and be successful at it. So, very simple steps. Where do I want to go? What do I want to live in? What do I want to make money from? How much can I pay for it? And getting the team around you to do it. So, let's start off with some first home buyers. Is any in the room? Any first home buyers in the room? Yes? Okay, perfect. 2 people at the back. Otherwise, I could have skipped through this session very quickly. So if we're going to get into a first home buyer, that's great. What do we do? What are our steps? So what do we need to consider? How do we get into the market? How do we choose our properties? What are the right properties to go from? What's the real balance and flow? Getting into the market realistically is the toughest bit. First time on the ladder is that hard one, all right? So out there at the moment, there's a few little programs for you that you can help into it. The first is the First Home Buyers Grant. Now, when you're getting into a property, you've got to have some HURT money, which is your deposit, and then you need to cash flow. Now, if you don't have any money saved at the moment, you can go out and then get that First Home Buyers Grant, which will give you $15,000. The next part of that is the concession, because when you go and buy a home, whether it's home, investment, first time or second time round, we have the privilege and the absolute wonderful feeling of paying stamp duty, all right? So what happens is that we've got to pay that stamp duty. Now, as a first home buyer, you can get that stamp duty waived for you first time out of the gate. So that's a good thing. Now, a lot of the media and press around that election was around a new grant. It's not really a grant. If you've got your 5% deposit, what the government are going to do is guarantee another 15% as security, which will help you get so much better lending, a better rate and a better deal, and then you're off and running. So the grant's there to help you, the stamp duty's there to save the money, the additional grant. Now on that, there was 110,000 first home buyers last year, and there's only 10,000 of those new. So you guys, if you're looking at getting that extra concession from the government, start the process now, because it's going to kick off January 1. So what you want to do is you want to have your money ready to go, you want your deposit saved ready to go, find your property and ready January 1. When it kicks off, you're off and running and you're first in the queue for the 10,000, because there's probably going to be 100,000 people behind you. Now, the other way to save money if you haven't got the deposit yet is use the Super Saver scheme, because saving's really tough. And you know, if you're putting 50 or 20 bucks or 30 bucks a week in the bank account, you're not going to get a good return on that. So what the government has allowed for is a new superannuation saving scheme. Now, what we know about superannuation is that every dollar you put in it, you can't get it back till you retire. But overall, superannuation has good tax credits, because you know you can use concessional tax money when you're putting super contributions in. But as the Super Saver scheme, you can actually put your money into the superannuation, get all of those benefits, and then redraw it as a one-off. So that then helps you build your deposit money up and running. So it's not like you're withdrawing super money, it's purely and simply for the First Homeowners Grant. Now, my favourite, if you can't do any of those, is talk to mum and dad. All right? Now, for mum and dads in the room, if you're helping people get into the market, your kids, because you want to get them out of the house as fast as you possibly can, I've just seen my 6-week-old sort of get strolled out the back there. She's just wandering around. So I've got 18 years to get her out of the house yet and start saving for it if I wasn't hurt. But what often happens if you are trying to get your kids into the market, we think it's bloody tough. We've got to give them the cash. We've got to help them out. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can actually do what's called a parental guarantor, which allows them to use some of the equity in your home to leapfrog them into their first property. All right? Now, once that property reaches a certain equity level, you can be released from that security. They're off and running, you're off and running, and you're out there and there. So if you're out there and you want to help your kids, you don't necessarily have to fund the cash to get in the deposit. So, first home buyers, save, 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 use the schemes, get the money from the government, get your help from mum and dad, and get on that wonderful roller coaster. So, next step. Realistically, what I would say if you are thinking of buying a home first, do you actually go down the home road first or do you go down the investing road first? Because the idea with investing is that if you set yourself up by making money first, you can actually then come back and pay cash for your home or be out of debt so much sooner. So many people sit there and think, oh, you know, rent money's dead money. You know, I've got to get into my home ownership. And I agree with that. Property is a great way of building your nest egg. But, you know, when people start talking down that road, we often say, well, rent money's dead money. Well, yes, it is, right? If you're spending your deposit and you're spending all your money. So then the argument goes, is property better? Yes. Okay. So is a property better that somebody else is paying for? Yes. Is lots of properties that are going up a lot better? Yes, of course it is. So ultimately the choice is, if you're going to start down the market, do you go out and buy that home, be in debt for a long time, or do you go down the path of investing first and then come back buy the home with a lot less money and a lot less stress? So really the choice is there. Now, if you are going to go and buy a home, it's very simple. Make sure you love it, right? Because what happens is we all get excited when we're out shopping and you walk through all those homes and you fall in love with them. But often 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, the shine can start wearing off it. The kitchen is as pretty, it's not as big, the garage doesn't have enough room for another motorbike or a toy or whatever it is. So if you're going to go down the path of being in debt for a warm, fuzzy feeling, make sure you love it. So that's really, really a key. Now, at First National, we have all these wonderful guides on helping you on how to buy and sell. I'm a bit of a paperless guy, so feel free to download that any time, right? So they're on the websites. I'll show you where they are. Any of the team can hand it out, so all the guides are there. But what I wanted to cover for you tonight is a few things that aren't in the guides, more about the strategy behind it. So before you go out, I touched on it earlier, sit down and pull a piece of paper out, or again, download the budget guides off the First National websites. You can go to any one of the team, they'll do it for you. And sit down with a glass of wine and go, right, what does it cost me to live each week? What's my mortgage? What's my rent? What's my food going to cost me? All these sorts of things. Because what you want to do is actually start understanding what I can spend per week for those sorts of things. And then get your budget from your broker to find out what you can spend. Getting these numbers right first is very, very important, because you can start planning out. And just be honest with yourself. And when you actually sit down, and I know doing a budget is the most boring thing on the planet to do, and when you're sitting there you might fudge the figures, especially if you're sitting with your partner and you're only telling you're spending $10 a week on coffee but you're really spending 30. That's okay, or whatever your pleasure may be, as you said. Everyone says has a drink before, but when I have a drink before these seminars I start to be a bit inappropriate, so I'll keep it to the coffees, right? So do your budget first, then make a list of everything that you want, right? So where do you want to live in, or what do you want to live in? That's the general two topics. Now, when we're going out that home purchase, ultimately we're going to start looking in two things first. No necessarily right order. It's either the location and the lifestyle or the dwelling size. Now, look, I'm a perfect example of that. For the last 40 odd years, my only criteria was looking at water, right? I didn't care if I was on a one-bed shack, couldn't care less, because most of my life on the road doing these sorts of things. But you know what? I wanted to come home at night and sit on my balcony and stare at the water, and that was my zen. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to meet my lovely wife, Holly. 3 months later, we were pregnant. Then a year later, we got another baby. So all of a sudden, my criteria is no longer sitting out there looking at the water, but it was bedrooms and a nursery and some grass and some swing sets and all those sorts of things. So my priorities shifted through the course of my life of what do I want to look at, but more dwelling sizes, right? So that changes through your course of your life as well. So what you want to do is before you go out shopping and seeing all the guys at First National to start looking at some products, what is my priority list? Now, on that priority list, you want to break it up into A, Bs and Cs. What are the must-haves? What is, do I really need it? And the others, really, I love that as well. So you can start prioritising on what really you want your home to be, and then you can move forward to it. Now, this is where you also start thinking about it. A home is unlike an investment property that you can turn over every 12 months, 3 years, whatever the number is. Generally, if you're going to go into that home, you're going to nest and you're going to sort of settle in and you want to do it. So when you're looking at that, you want to make sure that you're actually thinking about your future self. So are you young and single? Okay, great, maybe that'll pay right, but maybe you've started a relationship and you're thinking about getting married and ultimately kids from there. So going out and getting a nice one-bedroom beachfront, if you're about to have some babies, ain't a wise choice. And in reverse, you know, some people in the room are in their 40s and 50s and, you know, they got some kids that are 17 or 18 years old and you're trying to push them out of home. Maybe that is a good option to move into the one-bedroom apartment because then they can't follow you. Either way, when you're starting to go through this process, make sure that you're thinking about yourself. Where am I going to be in 2 or 3 years' time, and is this home actually going to work for me? Can I afford it? Okay. And this is the steps. Once you've gone out and said, okay, my budget is 500 grand. Okay, my priorities might be a water view and a 4-bedroom house with a 400 metre block out the back, close to some cafes and restaurants. Wonderful. And then when you go out with the team and you go, so, okay, boys, show me the stuff, and where I'm at the Pines or I'm at Burleigh or I'm at Palm Beach, wherever that may be, and you go, okay, right, what am I getting for my money? And then what you might find is that once you've actually gone out and seen what you can get for your money, it ain't perfect, all right? So that's where your A, Bs and Cs really start to come into play, because you might find a product that isn't an A and it's got one thing in the A but none else. But then you go and look at 3 or 4 others and you start going, well, actually that's got 10 in the B column, that's actually a better option. The other thing then is you've got to start thinking, well, if I can't get the dream home now, how do I get the dream home? That's pretty simple. Money. Money fixes everything, right? So if you're sitting there in the home now and going, well, gee whiz, I've got my home and I want to upgrade, but I've gone out shopping with the guys and I found that really what I want to live in is just out of my reach at the moment. Maybe you change your tack and start making money through investment property first, then come back 2 or 3 years later and you've got a lot more grunt behind you. So very, very important when you're starting to look at this process. And these are real just simple strategies to stop wasting your time and energy and get you clear and focused when you go out in the market so that you can actually start making decisions. And the other question is the dream home going to set you up for the rest of the life, or is it going to drag you down in debt? Because this is where the logic starts to come into your home. I am the biggest advocate for everybody in the room to have the best home they possibly can. The simple answer is if you can't, then you need to step away. And how do I get there? That's fundamentally making more money. So you adjust your priorities to get you where you need to be. And that's really the key to it. Now, whether we're going to buy a home or an investment, we need to get some money from the bank. Unless, is there anybody in the room that can pay cash for all of their properties? No? Just checking, because we're all going to come back to your place for after drinks, right? So, if you can't get the money from yourself or under the bed or sell a bunch of gold bullion, we need to go to the banks. So this is how banks work. Now, for probably about 15 years of my life, I actually used to do seminars for all the banks throughout Australia and New Zealand. So Westpac, Suncorp, NAB used to invite me into their banks and talk to all their clients. So what I'm going to try and do is give you a real crash course on how banks actually work and how you can manoeuvre to get the best deal. The first one is understanding how they give you money. There's 2 criteria. One is what's known as loan to value ratio. This is how much deposit or equity that you have. The other one is DSR, or debt servicing ratio, your ability to repay back that debt. So if you're going to buy a property the first time, you're going to need some deposit money. No, you don't necessarily need 20% like the common theory is. Everybody's sitting there scrounging around going, oh yeah, I need that 20%. You don't. You can actually get in with 5% deposit, right? It's as easy as that to get into these days. So if you're going to get in, let's say your first property purchase was 500,000 and you put 100 grand in, your LVR would be 80%. If you've got a property at 600, LVR 75, if you've got a debt of 45. Simple mathematical equation. How you work it out is simply divide the debt by the value of the property and that will give you a percentage. Now, if you're in the market here tonight and you're saying, yeah, I've got my home, I'm set up, what I want to start doing is buying more properties, but you're sitting there going, I've got to save another deposit. That's hard work. The good thing is that if you're going out and you've got property already, you can use the security against that property to then leverage into another property. And that's where you're what's known as combined loan to value ratio. So if you've got a property at 600,000 and you owe 450, new property 400, and you borrow all of the purchase price and the costs on top of that to get yourself into the next product, so it actually costs you nothing to get into, then it's a combined LVR. So if you had a debt of 600, you owe 450, that you're at 75, you buy another property, borrow everything and the costs on top, now you've got a combined loan to value ratio. So that's how it works. So if you're sitting there at the moment going, geez, I'd love some more property, but I don't have any more deposits, but you've got equity, you're off and running, you don't need it. That's how you move forward. The next one is what's known as DSR, or debt servicing ratio. This is very easy to understand. What's your income and what are the money going out? So if you're earning 100 grand a year, but you're actually spending 110,000, the bank's going to go, don't think so, right? That's how it works. So what they do is they look at your income. Now the income isn't necessarily just the wages or your self-employed drawings. It could be a share portfolio, you know, you're renting the odd room out. So it's whatever the dollars are coming in, and then they're going to look at what are the dollars are going out. So does anybody in the room know the worst thing that you've got that's going to hurt going out and getting a loan from serviceability? Credit cards? Kids. 100%. $20,000 a year minimum they look as a dependent, right? So, Holly, take them somewhere else, okay? And if you've got a 17 or 18-year-old at home that you're about to go and get a mortgage application, they just moved out, okay? Make sense? All right, kids are a tough one. But ultimately, those are the sorts of things you're going to factor. Now, how do you actually work the banks? The biggest thing that I can teach you here tonight is not just go to one bank, but go to them all. Now, what happens here is that we have a tendency of just walking back to our local bank manager and say, oh, Mr. Westpac, Mr. BOQ, give me some money. And you go, yeah, great, no problems at all. And generally what happens, the first thing that they're going to do is lock you in with a pre-approval, right? Now, what a pre-approval is an application for finance that goes on your credit score. Now, it's not unconditional yet because it'll be subject to valuations, the property you buy, the price in China, what's going on at the moment. So what you want to do is when you're going out shopping for your home or investment property is not lock in a pre-approval, but go and get a borrowing capacity from all the banks because now you can start shopping them. Now, when you're going out to get a borrowing capacity, it swings so much. Now, we had a client come to us and say, okay, Mr. Smith, Aaron, can you please help me buy property? We said, sure, what's your budget? And Mary said to me, 290,000. I said, great, Mary, let's start shopping, da-da-da-da-da. Now, quick question, Mary, how did you arrive at that figure at 290,000? And she said, oh, well, my friendly Westpac manager, my friendly bank manager, I shouldn't have said who they were because it's not anything about Westpac. What do I get? She said 290. She said, right, no problems at all. Wonderful. And I said, would you like a second opinion on that? She said, sure, but he's really good, I don't need one. I said, would you like to find out? It's going to take you almost 20 minutes of your life. And she said, sure. When we actually found out and we put her criteria into the computer, we found out she actually had a borrowing capacity of 560,000. That's a $270,000 difference between banks. It's massive. Now, that was either an average home or a good one, or one rental property or two. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you shop your banks and all of them at once. Now, one of the biggest things that they're going to shop you on is valuations. So when Mary came to us and we did a bit of research for her, we lodged some pre-approvals and, well, not really a pre-approval, but a borrowing capacity with Val's done. And what we found out is Bank 1 valued a property at 670 and Bank 3 valued it at 560. That's $110,000 difference between three banks on the same day. That's huge. Now, if you've got multiple properties, that could potentially $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 difference in equity levels. So that's the real thing. Ultimately, your serviceability is not going to change, but except on that, in the last few months, when banks are really tight, in the old days, they just go, well, what is your income? What's your car loans? What are your credit cards? Now they're actually looking at your bank statements and looking at what you spent on Uber Eats and Netflix, okay? So again, if you're actually going to go out and look at some property or you want to get some loan, stop ordering in, right? Cook, all right? Certainly for the next couple of months. But ultimately what you want to do is compare your valuations across all the banks. Now, how do you do that? You engage a finance broker. Now, what a finance broker should do is they'll sit there with you for 10 or 15 minutes and ask you some very simple mathematical questions. What have you got? What do you owe? Simple as that. Then they'll punch all the criteria into the calculators and they're going to talk to every bank in Australia and then they're going to come out with a number. So that's the way to do it. Now also when you are talking to your finance broker, make sure that they know what they're talking about. Because so many of them might just be a specialist in a little area, but the questions that you've got to ask them is, okay, can I do debt reduction facilities? Can I pay my home loan off sooner? Can you learn how to do house and land packages? Can I do funding for that? Can you do lending on self-managed super funds? Can you do lending in and out of this state? So make sure it doesn't matter whether your scenario is, they can do all of the job for you, all right? So shop your brokers as well as you're shopping the banks. Now, if you're in the room and you go, oh, geez, where do I find a platinum broker from? It's not hard. First National has them. All right. So at First National, we have our own finance division. So if anybody comes out of here tonight and says, I want a better loan, a better rate, great. Come and tap us on the shoulder and we can do all the work, all the research, everything for you for free. And it only takes about 20 minutes of your time. So underlining fundamentally, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you go to the brokers because I'm sure there's a few people in the room that have got a mortgage at the moment. Would you like a better one? Right? Would you learn how to restructure it? And if you're thinking of going finance, how do you get the best deal out there? Okay, so if we're going to go out there and we want to live in our dream home and we want to get some money and we want to build our wealth, generally we turn to property as an investment, right? So this is a bit easier, but it's also a bit more complex, right? The easy part, but really the hardest part of this is getting your head right. I don't actually call them investment properties because generally when I say that, most people hear the word property and subconsciously what they hear is home. So their criteria is, do I want to live there? Do I want to retire there? Well, I live there. If I've heard that once, I've heard it a million times. Well, if I would live there, it's great. But who knows my personality? Is that a smart decision or not? An investment property is fundamentally a money-making machine. The only reason you do it is to make more money. So what you've got to do is stop focusing on the product, okay? The product is just a widget or a tool to do a job. We just want the best tool to do the best job. Be emotional about your home. That's great. Paint it whatever colour you like. If you want waterfront or acreage, that's cool. But when you come to an investment property though, you want to make these choices that are going to get you ahead. So what you've got to do is start separating your head from your heart, and that's really the thing. Now, step one is stop asking yourself, do I want one? Because you'll never change. What you've got to ask yourself is, do I need one? Now, that's really the big thing. Now, what I want to try and do is start taking you away from that investment property mentality and start focusing on the right mentality, which is, do you want more money? No, simple as that. Do I want more money? Now, generally, most people go, yeah, I want some more money. So the question is, do you need any more money? Now, here's some interesting things. Financial freedom. Look, it's funny over the years, I've been to every seminar and I've done lots of them. And generally the words financial freedom mean toys, boats, cars, travel. And in this section, what we do is show you some pretty Porsches and, you know, some overseas travel and luxury holidays and all of that. I'm all for that, don't get me wrong, but that's not financial freedom. Financial freedom is how long can you maintain your current lifestyle if the income stops. Now here's a little litmus test for you. Tonight, go home, or tomorrow, or the weekend, whatever it may be, and go, what does it cost me to live? What's my mortgage, or what's my rent, what's my food, what's my electricity? So let's say it's $1,000 a week. Then open up your banking app and go, I've got $5,000. So what's your financial freedom? 5 weeks. All right? That's what financial freedom is. How long can you maintain before you get knocks on the door saying, can you pick your kids up from kindy? Why is that car getting towed away? And gee whiz, there's a knock at the door saying, move out of my house, please. Financial freedom is not toys. Financial freedom is controlling your financial life. Now, some boring statistics for you. We've got about 100 people here tonight. Now, out of 100 people, 62 when they reach retirement, you guys need to stay. 29 people in the room, you don't have any more financial problems whatsoever at retirement, so you can leave, that's okay. Now, there's going to be one person in the room that wanted to be wealthy. Who was that? Seriously, 3 people raised their hands, my God. Okay, right. More wine, bring more wine. Okay, so you're a wealthy person. Who raised their hand again? Okay, still 3 people, gee whiz. So, if you're going to be wealthy, right, lady at the back, you get a cheque each week from your investments and there's a number on the cheque. What do you reckon the number would be if you're a wealthy person? $1 million a week. Follow this lady home. The answer is, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, is it's $800 a week and you're a wealthy person in Australia. 80% of everybody else in every other room is going to live on $333 a week. All right? So every time you're at the post office or filling up at the gas station, look around you, most of those people are going to live on $333 a week. Now, in this segment, I used to waffle on for 10 minutes, 15 minutes about all these great statistics and trying to get you motivated, and you will forget about them by the moment you walk out the front door, and that's where the things start to change. So what we're going to do is mix it up a little bit. What I want you to do is actually be real with yourself. Now, if you've got a mobile phone, if you've got a tablet, you can do this exercise live as we're doing it, but I'm just going to bring this up for you and show you how we do it. Now, on our website, we've given you a tool to be able to go through what you've got. Okay, so where are we here? Okay, so that's First National Investment Properties. Okay, so that's our login page. So what we're going to do here, that's why I wear my glasses so I can see. Right, so this is firstnationalassist.com, right? What we're going to do is a very simple exercise to find out whether or not you're on track. Okay, so current combined income, I don't know, the average in Australia is about $80,000 a year. Ideal retirement income. Now this is an interesting concept because some people say at retirement, I don't need as much money because I don't have a home anymore. Other people will go, I'm spending a lot more time at home, I need more money. That's ultimately up to you. So why don't we just say 65,000? Now, minimum retirement income. This is why I still stand up on stage year after year, because this is what you need for financial freedom. Even if you own your home freehold, it'll still pull its hand out each week, each month and say, feed me, electricity, rates, love me. If you want to live more than 3 weeks, you need some food. And if you've got some kids, it doesn't matter how old they are, even if they're 50, they still want a birthday present, right? So what's minimum retirement income? These days, most Australians say they want 50 grand a year. Okay, so where are we at? This is the honest truth. Let's say we own a home that's worth 500,000. You can play along just in the room, think about your numbers. Let's say, I don't know, I've got $250,000 worth of debt. I might have bought that beautiful little investment property down the road for $350,000. I've paid some of that off, or I've got some really good equity growth in that, so you know I only owe $150 on that one. Shares, I bought some Telstra shares a little while back and they're going pretty well. Superannuation, the average super for Australians these days is about 150. Cash is money that you didn't tell your partner about, stuck under the tree or the back shed, and Holly's closed the door so she didn't hear where I found my money stash. So that's good. So let's say we got $3,000 there. Okay, now other assets. This is basically anything that you can sell to eat, right? Watches, clothes, I don't know, the third child that you didn't like, maybe the kidney that you weren't using, anything, right? So let's say we got 10 grand's worth tucked away. Credit cards, right? It's not the debt now, right? Sorry, not the limit. It's actually the debt that you've got. So most Australians have got on average about 10% of the debt. So what is now our comfortable position, right? So, hang on a sec. Okay. So we now have $1 million worth of assets, but we owe 400,000. So if we sold everything up today, we'd have 618,000. Now this is where financial freedom is that you've got to keep the money going, right? You can't keep it going into your asset. So if you've invested that money and you got a 5% net return, that means that you're living on $30,000 a year, okay? Now you're probably saying, well, yeah, but hang on, I've got nowhere to live. No, that's right. Because you've got to retirement, because you didn't prepare, you've had to sell the home, and now that $30,000 a year, you've actually got to rent off, right? So this is the true course, right? Now, maybe you go, Aaron, 5% money, I ain't getting that, so maybe I only get 2.5%, which means you're actually living on 15 grand a year, okay? If you spend a few minutes and do this exercise, and you do it for real, it will change your life, right? So, how much do we need to make? All right, well, that's an interesting question. So what we're going to do is find out how much money we need. If I need a retirement income of $65,000, I would need $1.3 million in the bank if I got a 5% return. If I only got a 2.5% return, that means I would need $2.6 million, okay? Now, that's going to give me my $65,000 a year or $1,200 a week. So if I need 2.6 and I sold everything and paid all the debts and I got 680, that means I need to make nearly $2 million. How long have I got to make it? I don't know, some younger people, some older people in the room, so we'll split the difference, 45. So I want to retire at 65. That means you need to make $100,000 a year in, year out for 20 years. You can see now why we have an open bar, all right? Now, the idea here, guys, is it doesn't matter. Now, maybe you've got 10 years to go, right? Maybe you're actually 55. Oh, 565, I'd like to be that person. Which means now you're going to make 200 grand a year. The idea, ladies and gentlemen, is when you do these exercises, you're going to start working out, should I upgrade that home? Should I downgrade that home? Or should I start making more wise choices of how to do it? So that's a very, very powerful tool. It's on the website, anybody can do it, you can get on there and tap into it. So the question now becomes, if I need to make money, what's the way to do it? Now generally most people turn to investment property. So I'm going to cover how this works. All right? If you're going to buy an investment property, forget the books that you read about, oh, I bought 100 properties in 7 years. What you want to do is buy one that actually makes you make money. It's irrelevant how many you've got, make sure that they're making you money. So how does it work? Generally, the first thing you've got to do is stop thinking with where I want to live. Now, if you are a couple and you go out shopping for an investment property and either one of you says, oh, I could live here, feel free to slap them, okay? The only person you're allowed to tell your wife or partner off, right? You can only do it once. Now the reality is we got to think about, stop justifying what you want and start focusing on what's the best one for you. Now there's lots of different strategies, and look, I do investment only nights and we cover lots of different strategies, renos, commercials, all these sorts of things. But what we're going to do tonight is just give you the basics to give it a bit of a taste, right? How does it work? The fundamentals. The biggest thing is getting into it and paying for it. Generally what happens if you own your own home, you're sitting there going, yeah, I'd love to buy an investment property, but how the hell am I going to fund it? Because all my money's going towards my home. Now with an investment property, it's different. You have other people helping you pay the costs. The tenant's pretty self-explanatory. The tax man is a little bit different. So what happens when you buy an investment property, you're entitled to the tax deductions. And this is with the big about election time negative gearing. Now on one side we have our cash deductions. This is fundamentally the money that you spend to own the property. The mortgage, the rates, the insurance, the property management fees, all these sorts of things. Now one thing, the maintenance is a scary one because so many people go, yeah, I don't mind buying that 30 or 40-year-old property because maintenance is tax deductible. Yeah, but you've got to spend the money first and then you only get a little bit back. So that ain't a good one. The good one is actually depreciation. As things get older, you get to write a percentage of them off, right? So with a dwelling, you've got the bricks, the mortar, the roof tile, and then you've got your fixtures and fittings, or if you're a Kiwi in the room, your chattels, right? So carpets, drapes, light fitting, doorknobs, right? Now how it works is this. If you're earning money, you end up paying tax. When you buy an investment property, the rental income is going to push up your taxable return, all right? Now, if the deductions are less than the rent, you're going to end up paying more tax. Simple as that. If the deductions are greater than the rent, you're going to now have a lower taxable income and then you're entitled to a tax rebate. So from a numbers perspective, let's say you're earning 100 grand a year, the rent on the investment property is 20, now you're earning 120, but if the tax deductions are 40, now you're only paying tax on 80. You're still earning 100, but you're only paying tax on 80, now you're entitled to a rebate. Now this is where it actually starts to get interesting or exciting because the formula can replicate itself. So you bought investment property 1, you're earning 100, after your deductions you're only paying tax on 80. Now you go and buy a second property, you're not starting at 100, you're starting at 80. So now it's 80 plus 20 minus 40, now you're paying tax on 60. Investment property number 3, starting at 60, now you're down to 40. So after a multiple property portfolio, you can actually get to a zero taxable income. Now, I'm not saying go and buy an investment property to not pay tax. What I'm saying is the tax that you're spending, instead of it going off to other things, put it back into your pocket. And that's how it works. Now, one of the big things also is cash flow. So what we do is for the people that are getting tax rebates, they're waiting to the end of the financial year and they're going, grumble, grumble, grumble each week when they're short. And then they get their tax rebate and they go, oh yay, 5 grand, oh, I'm going to Fiji, right? And next year they struggle, struggle, struggle. If you're going to get a tax rebate, you can actually get it in advance. You don't have to wait to the end of the financial year. So what happens is, let's say you get a tax rebate of say, I don't know, 5,200. Okay, all right, $100 a week. So what happens then, your account sends a letter off to the taxman. The taxman then sends a letter to your paymaster and says, okay, you're taking $200 a week out of bills pay, reduce that to $100, and now you get $100 a week pay rise straight out of the gate, which will help you service your investment property. So it's a very simple way of doing it, very, very powerful. So if we're going to buy a widget, generally any sort of investment that we're talking about is a percentage return. So we gauge our investments by a percentage return. Now, what do we think's a good one? What would you be happy with? What do we think, audience? What's a good percentage on your money? 10%? I feel like I'm doing an auction. 10, coming again, how do they do that? I don't know. Do they actually say anything? Or is it... Okay, 10%. No advance? Would you be happy at 50%? Yeah? Okay. All right, close your eyes because nobody likes to see everybody else. Just close your eyes for a moment. No one's closed their eyes, okay? All right, close your eyes. Raise your hand if you would go out and take action if you got 100% return on your money. Right. Interesting, okay? Now everyone's sitting 100% on your money. Come on, Aaron, bring out the Ponzi scheme. Don't worry, I know. But what we want to do is put it in perspective. Now, what you've got to understand with investing, we really get confused by the variables, right? The only true test of any investment, and look, I'll be completely honest, I don't even like property. It bores the hell out of me, right? What I want is money, right? And I want money for our clients. So all I'm chasing is a return. So the real test of any return is how much money did you actually pull out of your back pocket and what did you get back? So what I want to try and do is have a bit of fun, and let's put this in perspective. Does anybody have $10 in their purse or wallet they can help me with? Yes, sir? Okay, come up. Yep. Now, if you don't have $10 in your purse or wallet, then you definitely need more money. All right? Okay, so this gentleman here, he's got $10 in his wallet. Okay, so this is a test of an investment. If you had made the wrong choice, you could sit back down.
Thank you.
All right? No, come back. All right. Okay, so this is, I just want to put it in perspective for you. This kind gentleman has pulled $10 out of his wallet. Now, before you make any money, you've got to get your $10 back, right? So, if we got $10 back, after our $10, what was your percentage return? 100%? Do we all agree on that? Now, this is where the confusion gets in. We put our $10 in, but then, oh, we're throwing the money away. $10 goes in, but maybe that investment actually made, I don't know, $100. Ooh, that was good. We love that. But then all the fees and charges get eaten away. Capital gains tax, property management fees, interest rates, blah, 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 blah. And all of that money disappears. But after all the bills are paid, this gentleman got his $10 back and another 10. Were you still happy?
Sit down.
Sit down, yes, very much so. Thank you, sir. No, grab a seat. No, thank you. Right? Does that make sense? Right. Now, would anybody like to volunteer a 500% return on their money? Okay. So, the idea, ladies and gentlemen, is how do we get it? What's a good investment? Because ultimately, we only want an investment so we've got a great home and a great lifestyle. So, when it comes to property, we have two extra things. The first one is leverage and gearing. If we put our $10 into the bank or a share portfolio, we would get the money on the money we've invested. With property, we're actually getting the growth on the value of the asset, not what it's cost us. Okay, that's called leverage and gearing. So if you're buying a property at 300, 500, it doesn't matter. The gross going up on the property, not what it's costing you. Now the other one is my favourite, other people's money. Bank's going to help you get in. Most of the times they'll put even 100 and 110% in, so it might even cost you nothing. Then the taxman and the tenant is going to service it for you. So how does it work? Look, as far as growth rate goes, simple statistics, over the last sort of 100 odd years, we've averaged 7%, right? So here's a bit of a baseline figure. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some mathematics here. So I'm going to bring up some software. Now, when it comes to interest rates, look, ultimately, when you're looking at interest rates, oh, better put my glasses back on. Where do they go? Here we go. They always said if you didn't stop it, you go blind. I know. See, that inappropriate comes out. Okay, so what's interest rates at the moment, right? I just typed this in just before we went on stage, and we found out that for investment property loans out there at the moment, there's some 3s, there's some 4s, they're ranging in that sort of market. Okay, so our interest rates are 3 to 4s, our capital growth rate is that, so how does it work? Now, look, I'm just going to do a couple of little scenarios here. Now, 500,000, when I do these gigs in Sydney, that's basically a driveway. I'm out in Chinchilla in a couple of months and I can buy the whole town, right? So fundamentally, this is a baseline figure. Now, what we're going to do in this scenario is a few different cash flows. The first one is if we're going to borrow everything, okay? So our purchase costs, and I know this is a small screen, but basically we've got there is some stamp duty, some transfer, and you've paid a lawyer to make sure you've got your contracts right. So we've got that. So what we're going to do is borrow our purchase price plus all the costs. Now I've just put the average capital growth rate in there and I've put 3% in for inflation as well. Now, generally in Australia, the average rental is $1 per thousand, okay? So if you buy a property at $500,000, you'll get $500 a week. Now, I'm not saying that is the norm because sometimes you buy a property for $500, you get $350 a week, and sometimes you buy a property for $500, you get $800 a week. All I'm saying is this is a baseline for tonight. Now, our tax deductions, we've got our interest only. All right, okay, so we're going to put that on interest only there, and we've got our rental expenses. So in our rental expenses, we've got paying a good property manager to look after it for you. You've got your rates, and then you've got insurance. Now, just on the insurance one there, when you buy a property, you don't have to insure it in case someone gets broken in and they steal their TV, right? That's the tenant's issue, right? But you want to make sure that it doesn't burn down. But the one insurance that you must have is what's known as landlord protection insurance. Basically, if the tenant moves in, trashes your house, doesn't pay the rent, it's all covered, right? So it is the biggest safety net that you can possibly get. Now, those policies range from, I don't know, $260 to $350, depending on the product, but ultimately an average is about $300. So what we've got there is we've got some insurance in case it burns down and in case we get a bad tenant. Depreciation, okay. Tax deductions, now so I'll just put $90,000 in there just as an average taxable income. So what are our numbers here? Okay, so our numbers are the mortgage is going to cost us 23, the rates is going to cost us 5, so what are we talking? 28,500 bucks. So before you start, you need to find 28,000. So your negative cash flow 5 grand. Now this is where the tax come in, and the biggest problem with negative gearing is the name, because everybody thinks negative gearing is negative cash flow. It's not. So as you can see here, we've got our cash deductions, which is 28,000, and then we have our depreciation deductions, which means it gives us a total tax deductions of 43, which gives us a rebate of 6,000, which means our investment property is actually cash flow positive by 1,600 a year. So we've got a high interest rate there at 4.5, right? So that's above the market. Even if I jack that up even further, okay, why don't I put that at 5%? So what was that? 5%, here we go. All right. Okay, so we're cash flow neutral. So even at a really high interest rate, now some people in the room would remember when we were doing 18s and 19s and 20s, I do. I'm still standing on the stage doing this, right? So if we bought the new property, we got no maintenance, no repairs. If we got landlord protection insurance, it doesn't matter if they trash the house, we're still cash flow neutral. So one thing that we ultimately have is getting a tenant. How could we guarantee that we get a tenant? Fantastic. Good property manager, yes. But here you are. Now, even the best property manager in the world can't fix it if you're asking too much money for your rent, right? So what you've got to do as a person thinking to buy an investment property is, if you're looking at a property for investment, first go to the team at First National and say, I'm thinking of buying that rental property, what's it going to rent at? Now they're probably going to give you a rental projection, maybe like $430 to $450 a week, right? So if the rental market's projecting $430, $450 a week, then get online and find out what everything else is renting at. Now if they're all renting at $430 to $450 a week, what should we do now? Drop our rent even further, right? Because if I do my numbers on $400 a week, am I going to get a tenant? Bloody oath I am, right? And now I'm negative 30 bucks a week, okay? So, the thing when you're looking at rental properties, always make sure, yes, definitely get your property manager, but make sure that you do your cash flows well below the market. Now let's put things into perspective. You didn't pull any money out of your pocket, and you borrowed everything, and we've got a really high interest rate, and it's negative 30 bucks a week. Okay, so $30 a week means I'm spending $1,500 a year. So in 10 years' time, I would have had, what, 15 grand spent? Okay, so 15 grand has been spent, and if I took the average capital growth rate, in 10 years' time, the property would be worth $983,000. I pay the debt back to the bank and I'm left with 465. So if I invested 15 grand, what would be 100% of my money? 15 grand? If I invested 15 grand and got 460 grand back, is that more than 100% on my money? Bloody oath it is. All right, 7%, that's too much, you ask. Okay, cut it down to 3.5%. Keep it at the same rate as inflation. Even if it's at 3.5%, would you tip in 15 grand to make 230 grand? Yeah. And that's the power of property, right? That's the real thing, is that you can keep it running. Now, obviously, a new property is going to be the best cash flow property because you've got no maintenance, no repairs, no stress. You know, you're not ringing you, the property manager's not ringing you every 2 or 3 weeks saying, fix the tap, fix the washer, fix this, fix that, right? But maybe you want to buy a second-hand property, that's okay. The difference is ultimately cash flow. Now, if we've dropped our rent to $400 a week, and we've got a brand new 4-bedroom house and right beside it's a 30-year-old house, are we going to get the same rent? Probably not. Okay, so maybe I drop the rent another $20 a week, so $380 a week. Okay, interest rate still the same. I'm not going to adjust that one there. Bought second-hand property. I've no longer got any depreciation on my building anymore, and I don't have any depreciation on my fixtures and fittings anymore. So there. Now, the other good thing is that with older properties, we get to have some maintenance. Now, we can generally predict the maintenance bill 2 years in advance, can't we? No, of course not. It's silly. What are you talking about, Aaron? You buy the property, nothing, 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 $2,000. Nothing, 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 $3,000, right? So what you've got to do is put an average in. So why don't we just be nice and say the average maintenance is $2,000 a year. Bang. So where are we at now? We're negative $164 a week. Okay? So what's happening? That property's cost is $164 or $8,000 a year. Okay? So even if you got the worst cash flow property and had all these issues along with it, $8,000 a year, 10 years you spend 80. Would you spend $80,000 to make 460? Would you spend $80,000 to make 250? Bloody oath you would, right? So this is a big shift here. The difference between old and new is not how much money you make. It's what does it cost you along the way, right? Now, what you might find is when you've done your Are You On Track exercise and you realise that you actually need $2 or $3 or $1 million, you may need more than one property. And if the cash flow on an older property is dragging you down at $160 a week, how many of those can you buy, right? So the difference fundamentally, I'm not saying old properties are bad, I'm just saying fundamentally they cost you a little bit more to run, right? And that's the key. But ultimately the cash flow is only there to make capital growth. So I'll try and put that bit into perspective for you, okay? So if we jump out of that one for the moment, and I'll go back into my software. Where are we? Here we go. All right, so what we did is we went out and bought our investment property. I'll just make the maths simple. We bought one at 500, we borrowed all our costs, 5% interest rate, it's 26 grand, our running expenses are 5, so each year it's costing us 31. We got a rent of $430 a week, we got a tax rebate, which means we're shortfall $1,200 a year, okay? Average growth, I've pulled that back down to 5%, so our net worth is going up 25 grand. So how does it work? 25 grand, I've got to get my original $10 back, right, with the equation we're talking about. So I get my original $1,200 back. I've made 23,000. 23,000 divided by 1,200 means you've made 1,800% on your money. This is not smoke and mirrors, this is not magic, this is mathematics, right? And what the trouble is that when you sit down and go through this equation, you're judging all the wrong things. You look at investment property and one over there is $500 a week and the other one's $510 a week, and so you go for the one that's got a little bit extra rent. That's not what it's about. The cash flow is just there to give you capital growth. So if I'm a little bit more conservative and say the capital growth only goes up at the same rate of inflation, you've made 1,000% on your money. If it goes up the same rate as the average capital growth, well, you would have put 12 grand in to make 483,000. Leverage, gearing, and other people's money. That's how it works. Now, ultimately, what would we prefer to make? 200 grand or 400 grand? Silly question, right? The answer is not the cash flow, the answer is capital growth. Once you start forgetting that cash flow is just there to help you get the capital growth, then you're off and running. So what we really need to ask ourselves now is, how do we make money, or how do we get capital growth? Now look, there's all sorts of investment, commercial, developing, but ultimately most people generally turn to residential. Why does it work? Everybody needs a home and not everybody can afford to have one. When I started in the gig, 26% of the population rented. Now it's 48% of the population, and all the statistics tell us by 2040, 70% of Australians will be in rental properties. All right? We can't afford our own homes. So everybody will need one. So if we're going to start thinking about what should we buy now, we've got some choices. A high-rise, a townhouse, duplex, or a freestanding house. What do we think's the best option to make money, guys? House? Yeah? Any other questions on that? House? Duplex? Okay. Now, the general theory is we get a house because the land goes up. Yes, that is 100% true. All right? The land goes up and the building goes down. So a house has a more component of the thing that's going up and less of a component that's going down. In reverse, a high rise has all this thing that's going down, the building, and very little land component, right? Now, yes, I believe in all of that. But what you've got to start focusing on is who am I going to sell to? Because that's actually where we make our money. It's got nothing to do what you buy it for today, it's who are you going to sell to in the future. So who's better to sell to, an investor or an owner-occupier? An investor? Who gets emotionally attached at auction time? Owner-occupiers? They keep bidding, don't they? Because the investor taps out early long. They go, I don't know, it's just another widget, right? Well, what an owner-occupier does is they keep bidding. Now, look, just think about it. For those people that haven't been in an auction before, this is how it works. We've got three couples standing here. We've got this lovely couple over here, they're beautiful people, wonderful, thank you very much. We've got this dude over here, he's not so beautiful. Right, okay. And this lovely couple over, of course you're beautiful, we love you. Okay, so we're at the auction time. The auction starts. It's going up, yeah, it's all happening, blah, blah, blah. They're whispering over here and they go, oh, we've reached our limit. Stop. Now, come on, let's do one more. And what she says, she said, hubby, I'm shopping at Audi. We can buy some more. Don't worry, we'll go to Audi. He goes, oh, okay. This guy goes, I don't care, I'm single. I'm going to keep bidding because I want that. And this couple over here goes, I'm going to keep bidding too. I'll shop at Audi too. So the bids just went up another rap. Now we come back around again. And what he's going, look, don't worry, love. I love you so much. I know you're going to shop at Audi. I'm going to sell the toys. Don't worry. The Harley's gone. The boat's gone. We'll get another bid. And he goes, yeah, I didn't buy that toy last week. And you're sitting over there. I'm going to sell the two toys as well. And this is what happens in an auction. The owner-occupiers get emotionally attached and they keep bidding. Right? So then you've got to start thinking about, if I want to sell to someone, I want someone that's get emotionally attached and keep bidding. And that's why the owner-occupiers are the best to sell to as an investor, because they get emotionally attached. Right? And we've all done it. Anybody that's bought a home knows. Right? So, what is the dwelling that most owner-occupiers want? Now, it's not so much about the land component these days. Geez, when I started building homes 25 years ago, the average block size was 800, 1200 metres. Now the average block size is 300 metres. Now, we're not interested in the block size. What we want is a master bedroom, some rooms for the kids, and maybe, a double lock-up garage to put some cars in. So it's not necessarily the land component, but it's the room and the dwelling size. Yes, I'm a big believer in some people buying apartments, and I bought enough of them over the years and I love them. But again, once I have wife and kids, I can't set the kids all living in one room. I need 2 kids' rooms and a nursery and a study and a backyard to play around. So that's why fundamentally houses always go up more, simply because more owner-occupiers want them. So if you want to start tapping into that market, focus on the dwelling. Now the next thing is location. How do we choose it? So the first question posed, are we better off focusing on one location or multiples? What do we think? Multiple? Because you've got more choices, right? Because we don't care where the widget is, we just want to make money, okay? So if you're going to start focusing on multiple locations, what we need now is some form of comparison to work out what's the best one, okay? Now, when I started this at 18, I just sat there and scratched my head, okay, well, what do I need? I need capital growth. So how do I think about it? I need a checklist. So I just simply called it a capital growth checklist. Call it whatever you like. So if we're going to form some form of checklist, what should be on it? So what's on our list, guys? How should we start looking at our suburbs? What do we think? Schools? Yeah? Shops? Clubs? Growth? Where does the growth come from? That's what we're trying to identify. Infrastructure, great. Now, infrastructure is a word. What does that mean? Hospitals? Jobs? Transport? Schools. Okay. So, generally what most people start is an infrastructure list. So, jobs. Make sure that you're not buying in a one-house town where they shot it and used it as glue. And what I mean is small mining towns or things like that, right? So make sure that you got some jobs. Schools. Does anybody that's moved know anybody that's moved into a school zone just to get their kids in a better school, right? So school zones, shopping centres, public transport, medical facilities, recreation, water, the local topography. I got picked up the other night for what's the socio-economic, is it a high crime rate? I just call that security. But I did make a mistake. I put pubs and taverns in the wrong. That should be recreational. Right? So what we want to list is good things that people want. Then there's the supply and demand ratio. How many properties are available in that area? How many properties are available sale? But more importantly, what's the zoning? Because we've got a nice leafy suburb today, it's full of nice homes, then all of a sudden the developers come in and stick up a bunch of high rises and the supply's gone out of whack. Population growth, huge criteria. That's why big cities are better than small country towns, because there's more buyers and you're focusing on what sort of properties that they want. Supply and demand. Ratio of owner-occupiers to investors, very powerful. Anybody that owns their own home, we already know what we're doing on Saturday and Sunday. That's mowing the lawns and fixing the house, right? So we're spending more money on it. So the areas with higher ratios of owner-occupiers, generally the suburb is in a much better area. But also, if you've got a suburb, say 100 houses, only 2 of those are for rent, you can also command a much higher rental yield. Where in reverse, if you've got a suburb with 100 properties and 100 are for rent, well then the cash flow is going to go down as well. So ratio of owner-occupiers is very important. But this is where property cycles should be your first choice, and a lot of people don't know about them. What happens in Australia is that we have property cycles, and they've been going on forever. The reality is that over the course of the last 150 years, we've averaged that property has doubled every 10 years. Now in some cycles, like in Sydney, 2012 to 2017, it went up really quickly, right? So some are faster, but some are a bit slower. But what you've got to do is understand how they will affect your property purchases, either as an owner-occupier or an investor. Now, what we need to think about is if we're investing, if we buy at the top of the market, now this is where opinions vary. If I say to you, buy at the top of the market and you keep making money as long as you don't sell it, yes, that's 100% true. But you've got to be able to maintain it. So getting your cash flow right is an issue. But this is where things vary. If you buy an investment property in a market that's going down and the shit hits the fan and you've got to sell, well, you've gone backwards. If you bought an investment property and you need to buy more and you need more equity to do it, you can't because the property hasn't gone up. In reverse, if you buy a property in a rising market, even the bad ones go up. Right? Again, Sydney was the best example. There was a suburb called Mount Druitt, Struggle Street. Right? Now, that went from 220,000 to 580,000 in the course of 3 years through a property cycle. Right? So what happens is in the downward cycle, even the best ones aren't going anywhere. They're generally at best level-headed, but most of them going down. But in an upward cycle, all the good ones are going up. So that's the key in choosing it. Now, as an owner-occupier, this is where you've got to start thinking about things. If you're looking at buying and selling in the same market, and what I mean by that is, say, let's say, okay, where am I today? Okay, Currumbin. Okay, right. So Currumbin, I'm living here, and I want to buy another property in Currumbin. It doesn't matter ultimately what's happening in the market, because if it's rising, you're going to get more property, but yes, the other property's dearer. If it's going down, you're going to get less money, but the new property you're buying is going down as well, right? So the cycles don't matter so much as an owner-occupier, but they do matter if you're changing your locations. Now, this is where your strategy is important. So when you go to your local First National team, it's important to discuss these cycles, because what's going to happen is it's going to affect your marketing strategy. Now, I know everyone says, oh, those bloody real estate agents, all they're trying to do is talk us into more marketing. But the point of the exercise is they're there to help you. They're trying to get you out of the product or get you into the next one. And what you can then start to assess is if the market is going down, you need to be faster, right? You need to act quicker. So if they're saying to you guys, look, geez, what we need to do is we need to do this campaign, we need to do that, listen to them, because if you drag it out or you don't get that first hit and the best buying hit, you'll come back in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, and it'll go on for less. So when you're thinking about selling the property and you go to your local First National member and say, what do I need to do? Say, well, guys, it ain't going up, it's going down. Be more aggressive, dig deep, go hard and get that extra advertising money and get the best bang for your bucks in your biggest open home as fast as you can. Right? Very, very powerful, right? And the same thing too. Maybe the area's going up and you're not necessarily in a hurry. Oh, okay, all right, I know in a month's time I'm going to get more money for my property, so you know what? Bugger it, I am going to spend the extra $5,000 on marketing because I will get more buyers there, the demand is there, and I'm ultimately get more money. So getting the cycle right is very important for buying and selling your home. but also more importantly for your investment property, right? Now this is where you can think about it laterally. Yes, on average, property doubles every 10 years. But if you've got 5 years of it going down and 5 years of it going up, why buy in a city that's on the way down and wait for 5 years? Why don't you just buy in the area that's already going up, and then your property will double in 3 to 5? And that's as simple as that. So what you've got to understand is picking the cycles is very important. Now the good news is that every city in Australia is in a different place in their cycle. So as an owner-occupier, you can get your marketing right. As an investor, you can always have linear growth by keep buying at the bottom, buying at the top. You just choose your locations. Now I know this is a bit hard to read, but this is the current property cycle at the moment. Don't worry, you can download it, you can get all the information, but what you can see is it's all the way in a different place, right? So every location is a different one. That's all downloadable, it's all there, it's all information available for you. So stick with your cycles. Now another way of doing this is also using the CoreLogic or RP data. So again at First National we can download all this information, all the videos to give you all the information that you need. So if you're a chart person, use the charts. If you're a video person, use the video. But I can tell you the best resource that you've got. The thing with this information is it's ultimately a little bit older, right? So the CoreLogic, the RP data, all these sorts of things is 2 months, 3 months, 6 months old. The best resource you've got is what I call real time. Find out what's happening today, not 4 months ago. And the best way to do that is, again, talk to your team at First National because they're the experts. So if you're thinking of buying a property in Mudgeeraba, or if you're thinking of living in Sydney or thinking of Melbourne, you can tap into it because these guys can help you with the real-time information at any time, what's happening in the market, and all you have to do is pick up the phone. So there's definitely all the CoreLogics, there's all that information, but ultimately it's going and tapping your local guy at First National on the shoulder. It doesn't matter if you're thinking of selling up on the GC and moving to Darwin or Perth or, I don't know, or vice versa. Get the information and get it what's happening now, right? So they're the best resource. So how do we choose our location of investment? Let me make this one very simple. Location A, 50 good ticks, right? Good property cycle, shops, schools, jobs, train stations, all of that's great. Property C, no jobs, no hospital, no schools, lots of oversupply of land. Which one should we buy? A, pretty simple, right? Very, very unemotional. Now, does anybody in the room have a time machine? Yes, sir? Great. You've already seen the seminar, I know, so because you've come back, it was that good. Right. The reason I raise that is most people do their research in reverse. They look at what's happened as opposed to what's happening. Because if you actually look what's happening in an area, you'd realise that location B is getting some new schools and some new shopping centres built in the next 3 years, in which case that's where we want to be. But if you look a little bit further down the track, you see that suburb C actually has a whole town centre built, hospitals, train lines, all of that expanding out to it. So in reality, C's the better one. But this is where time comes into it. If you're in your 50s or 60s and you need money now, buying location C is a waste of your time because by the time you've got your money, it's already too late. So what you want to start focusing is on locations A and B so you get the money now. All right? So timing in the market is crucial as to when you need the money and where you need the growth. Now, buying a property in a self-managed super fund, ultimately this is another way of fast-tracking your wealth strategy. Now, superannuation is governed by whoever's governing at the time. Now, this is the difference. You can have the normal superannuation policy, that's basically in shares. So it's a ticker box option. Low risk, low return, medium risk, medium return, high risk, high return. If you set up what's known as a self-managed super fund, now you can change your asset class. Now what I mean by that is you can still do shares, you can still do the ticker box option, but if you feel that you're a finance guru in Facebook or Bitcoin or whatever those things are going to go up, go for it. All right? Maybe you're reaching retirement phase and you're going through a GFC or in a few crashes and you go, ugh, I want zero risk and I'm happy with zero return, stick cash in the bank and get a 2 or 3% return. But maybe you're property orientated, in which case you can set up a self-managed fund and actually buy a property direct, right? Now, I'm not going to get too much in the boring details about self-managed funds other than the fact that you can have 4 members, all your setup costs can be taken directly out of your super, and it's all there. The real key is that if you're going to go down the path of buying property in it, now you have 2 other tools at your disposal. First, leverage gearing and other people's money. So you can get the banks to lend to your superannuation fund. So if, let's say, you got 200 grand in your super, they ain't getting much of a property for that. But you can then go and use that as a 30% deposit and go out and buy now a $500,000 property, so you get much more growth. You can use the cash flow and all those sorts of things from the rent to help fund it. And then, if you then sell it at retirement phase, now you've got no capital gains tax. All right? So that's going to fast track your nest egg even further. So buying in a self-managed super fund is another tool to help you get to where you need to be. Now, like any investment, look, yes, I've sat there and say these are fantastic returns. What's the catch? There's always an issue with a property. Now, how we're going to do is fix it. The first thing that you do is before you enter into any contract, make sure that you get a good lawyer to read over them. Now, this is where people often fail. They go to the cheap conveyancing companies that just do the process, and I've got no issues with that at all, right? But if you're going to get in a contract and you want to know what's in it, pay the lawyers that actually do it properly. Now, it's probably only going to cost you another $300 or $400, but I can tell you the thousands of cases I've come across over the years that people didn't read the contracts and they've lost a lot of money over the years. So please pay the good lawyers to read the contracts, explain to you so you know what you're getting into. An accountant is going to help you get your tax right, and if you're going to claim depreciation, you need a quantity surveyor. But this is really the fundamental thing. Please, please, pretty please, with sugar on top, do not manage it yourself. You think that you're going to save $1,000 a year, but you'll just tear it up just in pain, stress, and not getting it right. So again, there's a guide to help you go through the property management journey, but it's not complicated, guys. You've got enough professionals around you in here in the room tonight. We've had a few people raise their hands. Don't worry, you can crash tackle at the end of the night. What I've showed you in that cash flow is that it's going to be covered anyway. So please don't try and manage it yourself. Get professional people to do it, because I tell you what, you might think you saved $1,000 right up until you've got to deal with tenants and find them and go out there and deal with the dramas. It is the biggest headache, right? So please get professional property managers to look after it for you. Ultimately, the 3 problems are it doesn't go up, you don't get tenants, or you get a bad one. Okay, if you get a bad one, not so much of an issue because you paid your $300 in landlord protection insurance. When you've done your cash flows, you've done your budget that's below the market, so you've always got people queuing up to get it, and your professional property manager is going to screen them for you and weed all the bad ones out and keep the good ones for you. And then capital growth is simple. Buy in a city that's going up, buy a widget that owner-occupiers want, and get as much good infrastructure as you possibly can, as much infrastructure coming, and you're off and running. But even if you don't get a lot of capital growth, what you've learned to is with return on investment, you don't need a lot of capital growth to get a high return on your money, okay? But ultimately, when you're looking for things, capital growth is important. So why people don't do it? It's generally not because they don't have money. I know every person that doesn't qualify or can't buy one definitely wants to buy one. It's generally people that are sitting in the room going, yeah, I don't know, humming and hawing. And what happens, and they walk out of a room like this and go, oh, 1,000% of my money, doesn't cost me any money, no stress, all the people look after me, yeah, I'll have a slice of that. And then they start to talking to people. And this is where it all goes wrong. So if you're going to start talking to people about whether or not you should buy an investment property, and let me tell you straight, I'm not here to tell you to do it. All I'm saying, if you're thinking about it, this is what normally happens. You talk to the neighbour across the fence, you talk to the guy at the pub, you're sitting down the pokies a bit later on, you go, oh, you're going to buy an investment property, that's really good, yeah, good, yeah, love that, yeah. And then they go, no, don't do that. Then you say, right, well, I need more money, because the only reason I'm buying investment property is because I need more money. So can you give me another alternative? And then if they say to you, sorry, I don't have another alternative, then just ask them the next follow-up question. Can I have some of your money, please? And when they say no, stop talking about your own financial plan, right? Because it's yours. So realistically, the best property strategy is yours. Stop focusing on the people around you and just focus on yourself, right? Ideally, it comes back to a few different things. One is the time, one is the return, one is emotion, and one is risk, right? There is no right or wrong on this. You know, some people want to go out there and go boots and all and buy the best home they can and buy the best investment properties they can and go hard. Other people are a lot more conservative. Ultimately, it comes back to you. And that's the focus of the night when we're starting to wrap up now is don't worry what other people tell you, just focus on yourself. Get the facts right, do the information, do your research and deal with the people to do it right. So the question now comes. We talked about what to buy, how to get the money, how to choose them. The real last bit is who do you work with to get the right answer? Does anybody know who you should work with? First National. Yay! Yay, that's it, guys. Look, with First National, there's 400 offices across Australia, thousands of experts, specialists all in their fields, right? So don't get confused thinking that your local guy is just your local guy. He's part of a bigger organisation. And you know what? Their logo at First National probably says it all. We put you first. And that's the difference with First National. All of us here are going out of their way to make it right for you and do the right thing. So ultimately, where you go from here, ladies and gentlemen, is up to you. But if you want our help, we can help you in a lot of different ways. Just take a couple of seconds and ask yourself these questions. Are you thinking of buying and selling your home? Okay, all right. Are you thinking that you might want a better finance deal? Do you want to save some money in repayments or find out how you can buy a better home or pay your home off sooner? Good, well, there you go. All right, there's one in the room. I know she's had some wines already, so that's good. Would you like to learn more about property investment or would you like any information that we've talked about tonight? Now, if you've asked yes to any of those questions, how do we help you moving forward? The idea at First National Assist is we're there to help you move through the journey and point you in the right direction, okay? It's not our job at First National Assist to tell you what you need to do or try and sell you into anything, right? What we're going to do is help you move through the journey. Now, how we do that is quite simple, right? Have a meeting with one of our team. It's not complicated, right? You set up a one-on-one session with us. Now, the good thing these days is, yes, you can sit in the office and you can spend 2 hours in traffic, but we do it all virtually these days. And I can tell you today I had about 4 of those. One was a girl that was in Toowoomba sitting in a car on a mobile phone, another one was in Mackay, and the other one was sort of actually quite local. And yet, every one of those was able to pick up their phone, pick up their tablet and talk to us online at any time. And that's how we do it. Yes, you can come and see in the office, but you don't need to. So the idea is you have a session with us one-on-one. Now, also on this, it's important to appreciate there is no cost to this strategy. We do not charge you, okay? So the idea, what we're going to do at First National Assist is help you work out which First National office you need, what finance you need, whether you need self-managed super funds, whatever it may be, and we're going to guide you through the process. So there is no cost to that. Now you're all going, oh yeah, no cost, what's the catch? There is no catch. If you go through those sessions and realise that you need a house or something managed, we're going to refer you to the property managers and they're going to charge you a fee and a service to look after your property for you. If you say, gee whiz, I want to sell that home, well, you're going to pay the good people a good rate to sell the home and get you the best money you can. If you're going to go out and buy a home, there are no fees and charges because real estate agents get paid by the vendors, okay? So the idea here, ladies and gentlemen, is whatever's twigged your interest tonight, because obviously you've come here for a reason. Maybe there's a few people in the room with free food and wine. I can see that person out the back still getting the food and wine at the moment. I can see your Bruce hovering out there, I know. All right? If you want some help, we're here to help you. All you have to do is go through the journey and we'll do it and it's not going to cost you anything. Now, there's a few ways we can do this. With the appointment setting strategy, there's new school and there's old school, right? With the new school version, it's all electronic, right? So everyone would have been sent a text and an email. That'll pop up on your phone and you're going to get a login code. And this is how simple it is to make your own appointment, okay? So I'll just go back to this one over here. I've got my glasses on. Here we go. Okay, so someone in the audience has a 0403 068 555. Somebody? Oh well, maybe not. Okay. I thought they were definitely logged it in. Either way, when you click into your text in your email, all you do is you'll get a login code. It's going to pop up there, and all you have to do is go book an appointment now. Pick a day. That's the day. I don't know, Aaron's got feeding time at about 2 o'clock in the morning with his baby, so I'll make sure I book an appointment then. Okay, that's it, it's done. Now, if you then want to fill more details about you, that's great. That's completely up to there, okay? So the idea, oh, there she is. She snuck out early. That's all right. So the idea fundamentally is if you want to book your own appointment, you can do it. All the resources are there. If you don't, we're going to go back to an old school method in a sec. So I'll go back to my page here. Now, where are we? Last page. Here we go. So booking an appointment with us is easy. Now, I suppose the question here is quite simple. Most people come into this room and go, yeah, that's great, thanks very much, and do nothing about it, right? If you do that, go online and find out whether you actually need to do something about it. Because this is what I say to you. I put my hand on my heart every night that I do this, and I will give an hour of my time to everybody in the room. And if you think you've learned something in an hour and a half in a general format, imagine what you could do with me one-on-one for an hour, all right? So I don't care where you're at, what your situation is, whether you want to build high rises or whether you're broke and starting again, we've all been there. The idea is whatever you want to do will help you on the path and will help you move through the process. So if you want to do something, take action and do it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you thought it was free. It's not. What we're going to do now is just hand around some clipboards. All we ask in return for the night is a bit of feedback, okay? So the team are going to hand it round. All we'd like you to do is, at the top of the column, write down what you liked. Did you get a good night out of it? Would you invite some friends to another one? Because at First National, our key is we really want to go out of our way to make a service for you. Right? Now, just to make it a little bit fun, anybody that fills it in, we're going to collect them straight after, and then we're going to do a lucky draw and give some moe away. Right? So, fill the forms out. Okay? All right. Now, what I will say, when you get the form, if you are old school and you want a session with me or one of the team members, just circle the box yes. Saves a lot of computer technology and all those sorts of things. Okay? So, as we're handing those through there, it helps if you put your name down the bottom too when I draw it out. Okay, well, you've got to do some comments. Now, whilst I'm doing that, what we got time is we got 2 or 3 minutes for questions. Ian, have you got that other mic, mate? Oh, here it is. I've got it here. Okay. Now, whilst we're going through these forms, does anybody in the audience have any questions I could about answer for them? Yes, ma'am. Oh, the property cycle? Yeah, so go to, if you just tick yes, we'll send you all the forms, or you can go to First National Assist and we can download it there. Yeah, but if you click yes and just say property cycles, we'll send it to you. Okay, do we have any other questions in the audience, ladies and gentlemen? I've either done a really good job or a really bad one if there's no questions. Okay. All right, no questions? That makes it easy. Can I have a lovely unofficial barrel girl? Who would like to be a barrel girl? Yes, sir, come up. You're a good-looking barrel girl. Come on. No, come on. Come on down. Oh, right. No. All we want to do is when the forms come round, we'll hand them back in and then we'll just pull one
I
out.
thought Paul Murray was busy on Sky Channel.
Oh,
Double.
oh, am I really?
Yeah, but better.
Is he a better looking dude? Oh,
No, he's not easy. But you do a bit better than me.
oh, that's good. Do you have good
I get rubbish because I watch it. It's all about
Yeah,
politics
yeah.
and I watch it with my wife. She likes all these silly films, old films and that, and so we have a problem with it.
Oh, perfect.
But no, you look like him and you present like him.
Oh.
He's very positive in what he says, whether you want to believe him or not.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
very positive, and you're obviously very positive.
Okay.
What sort of response do you normally get?
Oh, it's always pretty good.
Yeah.
Always pretty good. Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, as we're filling the forms out, I do have to collect them to do a draw. So if you can just wave them above your head. the pretty people working around the room, they'll sort of raise it for you. Ian, we've got a few over this side. Wade, why don't you take that side, we'll take this side. And then we can put it in the bag. All right, we're going to do a clipboard run. I know we're pulling them all off the clipboard, so that's good. We probably need a First National representative up here to get a good photo opportunity. Okay. Come on, you're a good photo opportunity. Come on down. Yes. Come on. Got to wave the First National flag here.
Oh, sure, why not?
Yeah. So after we do this, guys, there is food and drinks, so we can have a mingle session after. See the good-looking Jamie at the back because he's paying the bar tab. Oh no, he didn't respond. That's all right.
Not stealing my job.
Who's got a?
I'm the barrel girl.
And you're going to present the champagne. You're going to pull it out. This lovely lady is going. See, you started me. It's lucky the mic was off. All right.
Oh, should it be in the light? Oh, you got.
I know we're going to do two.
Oh, you got two.
We're going to do two. Yes. Double your chances. Oh, he's got a Corona. I thought you were bringing that to me for a moment. No, it's just very, very shortly. Okay. Does anybody not have a form filled in? Okay, wonderful.
Are you with First National?
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Liz, do you want to grab a camera?
I'm at Mudgebar.
Okay. Are we all good? All right. Oh, we'll just pull a clipboard out or a piece of paper. Come on, Liz. Come on now. Yeah, we're waiting for you. Always. Yeah, we know. Isn't that why I say 10 minutes, but it's really 20? I know. So always allow 30.
Absolutely.
Okay, so official barrel draw. Oh, couple more. Hang on. Oh, I'm even on time. Look at that. Have you got a camera? Oh. Ian, Saloon, has anyone got a camera? Want to get a photo? All right, how are we going? We're almost there, folks. One to go.
I like your dad. Yeah, I bet you would.
All right, we're all
He's
good?
coming to the Darcy Arm.
Where's that good-looking rooster, Ian? Have you got your phone on you, mate?
I'd like one of these by now.
Good, we'll get a photo.
Oh, I know, they're taking it.
Okay.
Off it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious moment now. Come on, come on. We have this good-looking man here who's, I aspire to be a good-looking barrel girl like this. Can you be official? And her. No, she's the prize presenter, all right? Come on, Liz. Now, this is highly technical.
Very technical.
I don't know, some random we
Some
found.
bird you
Some
picked up
random
along
we
the way,
found,
yeah.
yes.
It's my daughter.
I know. Come on, Mr. Barrel Girl.
You're a little bit proud.
Pick one.
Pick one. Oh, and if I could only see.
Yeah, he does.
Mick Flynn. Mick? Here we go, Mick. Come on down. Yeah. Congratulations. Oh, hang on. Photo. We're going to get a good photo. Come on. Oh. Look at this old digger, eh? Just coming in, grabbing the old ones. Yeah, love you. All right, okay, one more.
One more.
Here we go.
Oh, tricky. He's tricky.
He's tricky. Rosemary. Rosemary Black and Greg. Are you here, Rosemary? Come on down. Yay! Oh, you got the other bottle?
Do we
Good.
know, Rose?
What'd they say? Oh, I know.
Oh.
Come on, Dad.
Oh, okay. That's better.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for tonight. If you can just give everybody a round of applause for First National for putting the night on.
Well done, First National.
And feel free to have a drink. Go up to all your First National people, give them a big hug, big cuddle, thank them for putting the night on. They went to a lot of time and energy to do this, so thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm officially signing off, and can someone pour me a wine?
Yeah.